Welcome to the revolution in the airwaves. It's The Cure with Scotty and Sully, where we don't just talk about the medical industry, we transform it. This is The Cure with Scotty and Sully, where we don't just cover excellence, we create it.
Right? Hey, welcome to The Cure with Scotty and Sully. It's another Friday morning. We're all pumped up. He's on the road. You know, it's one of his many meetings where he flies in. He looks good. He's wearing his Clint Black outfit. So if you have any country music requests, please send them to thecure.com. Scott Adams.
I'll be singing them live next week.
So, Scotty, tell the folks where are you? Where are you right now? I mean, because you spread your wings amongst the medical community. Where are you at?
I am at the probably most well-run city in the country, run by a bunch of brilliant human beings called Washington, D.C.
Oh, brilliant!
Yeah, where everything runs so smooth and perfectly. I'm here with HIDA for their fly-ins, where we go on the Hill and go do lobbyists. So yesterday I saw a handful of senators and congressmen. Let's be honest, I didn't see any of them. I saw all of their staff, who are maybe 24 years old at the oldest. And that's who's running our country. That's how the sausage is made. The staffers that work for the Senate and the Congress. So, anyhow, so I'm in DC this week.
Nice. All right. Well, listen. So this was sort of a last minute thing because I got an email from my man Josh Fletcher, and this guy's unbelievable. If you're just tuning in right now, you are in for a treat, because this isn't only going to make you smarter, give you a little more knowledge, give you some skills, communication skills, but it's going to be a blast. And I say this because before we went on air, Scotty, I told you I was working with a great company called Avanti, and I had to do a 2-hour keynote session, and the guy who was up right before me was this guy Josh Fletcher, and he comes in with that good old Kentucky Southern accent. He gets on that stage and he was reeling them in, right? And I'm wondering, what's this guy all about? And I guess by trade, and of course you can give the music background too, Josh. A music teacher, that works with a lot of kids. I think it was high school, but again, you can correct me. And he said, but I'm a mentalist. And I'm like, I often call Scott Adams a mentalist, but yours is an actual skill. Right?
Yours is a compliment.
Yours is a compliment. And he gets up, and I swear he's reading people's minds. And I was one of the first guys. And Josh, I don't know, I'll butcher the memory of what you did. I think I held a card out, and I'm like, I don't know, 10 tables back, and you come around and but it was way more beyond just card tricks. What you were able to do is, through all of these really cool mind games, which is what they were to me, is really tie it to a business message, right? Communication skills, reading body language, noticing people's eyes, the words you use. And so you've got a real knack, not only for entertainment, but for understanding what's in the brain of people. And that's what I'm curious. What could we steal from you so in some small way we can be mild mentalists? Would you help us do that?
Absolutely, Brian. Yeah, you're remembering that pretty well. I've been doing the mentalism thing for quite a while, but then also I have over 17 years actually in a classroom, middle school. And so as these kind of two completely different worlds slowly started to merge, and I realized just how much the lessons I was learning in one area, completely, locked in line with this other. And so a lot of the same things that I've dealt with, as I said, for almost 20 years now in the classroom, dealing with motivation and getting people to change their perspective and their mindset, that all completely and directly translates into the corporate world, because that's something that everybody's dealing with. And as you said, with the body language aspect, just so many people, and I feel like at this point in time, we're more distracted and less connected than ever. And so just paying attention, there's so much that we can learn and grasp and take away from people that is not just helpful in us closing a sale, but genuinely making a connection with that person that in the end, and it is more financially better for whoever's doing it in the long term, because once this person trusts you and they know that you have their best interest now you have potentially a client for life.
Josh, I haven't seen you yet, we haven't jumped into this conversation yet, but if you had the ability to change the minds of middle schoolers, I'm already overly impressed with you. That's unbelievable. 17 years with middle school kids thank you for that service, man.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, actually a true story. One time there was a committee, a couple of ladies that were considering me and some other entertainment for an event. And it wasn't as much the training. They were just kind of wanting to show some of their sales team from across the country appreciation. And they asked me, they said, some of these salespeople can be kind of alpha, assertive. Do you think you can handle yourself? And I just asked the lady point blank, I said, have you ever been in a room with 80 middle school students? I said, I've got it. And they booked me, and then it worked out fine.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Hey, what's a mentalist?
So I like to say in the performance aspect, it's kind of like what you'd expect from a magician, but I'm not making things appear or disappear. I'm messing with people's minds and trying to figure out what they're thinking. So at the end of the day, most of what I do is entertainment because, a lot of times people, they need a break, even in something like a sales summit or a conference. It's so content heavy. And, by the end of the week, everybody's brains just mush. It's, they're getting a lot of great information, but being able to step back from that and just kind of laugh and let loose a little bit, it's helpful. And then several years ago, as you kind of mentioned with the Avante, the focus, I started doing more and more of finding ways to take those key points and those key messages that people have gained throughout the week and relating that directly to what I do, plus presenting it in a way that's fun and, because people are more likely to remember things if they're actually having a good time while they're doing it.
It's funny. My business partner, Pritchard, always says, because we both speak a lot at different things, and he's always like, you know what? It's how you make them feel. It's not what you say.
Absolutely.
And it's 1,000% true, especially if it's a dry topic. I assume that a lot of your stuff, other than when you're just hired to do it from an entertainment standpoint, has to do with sales teams. Would I be correct in that?
Yes, the majority of, because there's such a direct connection between sales, but at the same time, as I was mentioning earlier, just the whole impact that our mindset and how we perceive things and how we go into situations and how that can go across, basically any sector. And,
sure.
Because whether it's achieving this next goal or, feeling like you have hit a certain wall, there's a lot of times that I'm brought in to, just help people look at things in a different way and see what it is that they're missing or where they're putting up these blocks, in their personal or professional lives, just to try to get them to achieve at that next level.
You ever used it in a way to persuade people, like how a salesperson would need to persuade somebody to buy a product or not trick them, but.
Well, there is, yes, I'm really big into persuasion and Robert Cialdini. I'm sure y'all are probably familiar with, and if not, definitely look him up. But ethical ways, because that's the thing. So many times persuasion has such a bad, connotation to it because it seems like you're trying to, be sleazy and get people to do something that's not in their best interest. But as I'm sure both of you know, sometimes even if something is in someone's best interest, there's so many roadblocks that are popping up in their way. And sometimes people actually, get in their own way from making the best decision, and being able to subtly help people, guide them to where they're ultimately going to be happy, but do it in a way that makes them own that decision and feel good about it. Well, like, for example, Scott, this is something I like to do sometimes, because a lot of times to get people excited, because a lot of times when I jump up in front of a group, there's nervous laughter. There's a little bit because, people, they hear there's some guy that's going to be reading people's minds. What's he going to do? And, people are afraid. So a little lighthearted way to get people started and to kind of show a little bit of what I do. So, Scott, we're going to play a game. Okay. And I'm going to give you a chance to win some money. Sound good?
Yep.
Who doesn't like money? Now, Scott, I'm going to be honest with you before we begin. It's not a lot of money. It's just a $5 bill. But that is it's almost enough for a cup of coffee at Starbucks, right? So the game is real simple. I have two envelopes here. In each one of them is something. One of them contains a $5 bill, and I'm going to do my best to get you to win that $5 bill. Okay?
Okay.
Straightforward, right?
Yep.
Now, I have two envelopes here, as I've already mentioned. The first one is labeled mine. Now, Scott, would I put the money in the envelope labeled mine, thinking that you would want what is mine, or maybe you're already reading it from your perspective and you think it's yours? The other envelope it's a mystery. Okay, it's a question mark, because who doesn't like a good mystery?
Yeah.
So, Scott, mine or the mystery? What are you feeling?
Probably go with the mystery.
Mystery. Okay, so I'm going to put mine right here. Now, it did fall on the floor. Let me switch. Let's do that again. So here you go. You got your mine. Put it there. Sometimes things work. All right. Now, I'm going to give you a chance I don't always give everybody, because I don't want you sitting around tomorrow morning thinking, why didn't I change my mind? Now, before I give you a final chance to lock in your decision, I feel like there's three things I need to tell you. Number one, most of the time I put the money in the mine envelope. Number two, most of the time people do change their mind and they end up regretting it. And number three, at least one of those things I just told you is a complete lie.
I'm going to stick with the mystery.
Stick with the mystery. Okay, mystery envelope inside for you, $5 bill. So, Scott, whenever I meet you in person, that $5 is yours.
There we go. All right. I love it. I needed to tip my baggage claim, guys. Tomorrow.
There you go. There you go. Now, I'm sure you're probably thinking, but what if there's just a 5 in both of these, right? I mean, I am a mind reader, right?
That's how Brian Taylor, our friend, would do the joke.
Penguin magic.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. Inside the mine envelope, had you chosen it, you would have gotten 100.
Andy, I love it.
But hey, you got that 5. You won.
Hey, I'll take the 5.
Applause for Scott.
All right.
What is that? Hang on one second, Sully, just to follow up to that. Yeah, I saw something the other day, and I can't remember who did it, but the guy got up on stage. He kind of does what Sully does. He was a sales training guy, and he had somebody come up, and Sully Pritch said he was going to send it to you. I don't know if he did or not.
Yeah, he did.
He has a rep come up, and he has a rep come stand in the middle of the stage, and he turns to him and he goes, "Hey, follow me and come to this side of the stage." Rep goes to that side of the stage. And he says, "No, follow me. Let's go to this side of the stage." The guy follows him over to that side of the stage. He goes, "Now come back to the middle. Now put your hands up and press against me." And as soon as he started pressing against that rep started pressing back against him. And his whole message was, if you can lead your customer, which is another way of persuading them to what the result that they're trying to get, where they think it's them, versus putting up an objection that the first thing you do when I pushed against you is you pushed back. And when I was in the car business 25 years ago for about 3 years right out of college, and we used to do that with demos. Instead of asking somebody, you want to go do a demo of this Camry? We would just say, "Hey, we're going to go do a demo," and just start walking. And 9 times out of 10, that customer would just follow you right out. But if you ask them, they're like, no, I'm not here to buy today. I just want to do,
Yeah.
But you just kind of lead them, which is kind of what you just did with me right there. I feel like is just you kind of led me without me even realizing you were leading me to the decision to make. Keep your $100 bill in yours.
That's right. Yeah, I don't want to lose it.
Yeah, I love it. Sorry, Sully, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, bud.
No, that's it. Pritch sent that video to me, and it's a great illustration of how do you allow the customer or the prospect to feel like they are in control, but you
100%.
are actually in control. And that's what great communicators do, right? And it's what great leaders do, right? We've all had great leaders who, rather than say, "Hey, bud, this is the way things are going to be," that's that push, right? Or, "Hey, we just invested in CRM, and damn it, you're going to use this CRM." And what does it do? It forces people to push back, as opposed to saying, "Hey, if there was a better way to manage your time, you tell me how you'd use it." And you get them to sell themselves, right? People want to remain in control. And I think a lot of salespeople and leaders forget that, right? They push too much. And I think that's a great way to illustrate remaining in control. You were in total control, but you gave Scotty the option. Right?
There you go.
Yeah.
100%.
And that's the thing. I'm always looking for, like you were saying, Scott, that demonstration, because things like that, they stick in people's minds. I'm sure everybody that was in attendance walked away. Whereas if you'd have just verbalized that, it would have went in one ear and out the other. They probably would have forgotten it. But that visualization and that physicality of it and them seeing it, makes that message stick in their mind for a really long time. And so I'm always like something that I just did with Trudell Medical, and I've done several times. So you guys can do this. Okay, everybody, take your hands and just rotate like this. Okay, now go the opposite direction. Now take one way and the other way. And so then I make a comment. Hey, you're doing great. You're doing great. And then so, in doing that, I said, we've established a couple of things. One is our brain has a really hard time acting on two conflicting ideas at the same time. Yeah. And number two, I've made a whole room full of highly educated people look absolutely ridiculous because, we have people that are doing this kind of deal. But, just little things like that, because it clicks in your mind. You're like, yeah, I have a hard time doing that. And then tying it back into, like, for them, it was part of the sales process because, if your main focus is on getting them to buy and running through the next line of your sales script, you are not leading them through the most effective process and actually making that connection. Because, you can't do both of those. If your main focus is, I just have to make the sale, they're a number, at the end, then there's no way for you to genuinely pay attention to that person and connect. And so, just little things like that make it stick in people's minds.
Josh, you just totally butchered the things that I told them for 7 hours 2 days before. You said
Well, see, hopefully after those 7 hours, then it's
you just had them worn down.
Sully. We're having connection difficulties. Hang on. No, but listen. So this is an interesting topic. So let's stay on it, right? So there's a difference. This structure that our brains are pre-wired, right? Our neurofibers are all pre-wired, and what this exercise did is it messed with the with these connections. Mm-hmm. And so the question is can people do things in a repeatable, processed way? And how do you get to a point where it feels natural so that the brain isn't fighting you, right? So that and in anything that just takes practice and drilling and rehearsing, whatever it is you're going to do, whether it's hitting a golf ball or whether it's going through a sales process, it's going to feel weird at first until you put the effort in to rewire your brain to say, no, this is what good and normal looks like, right? Yeah. So because your brain's going to fight you on anything that provides pain, right? It wants to be comfortable. And so, so it's a really interesting topic. Hey, tell us like your crescendo, like the one that blows people away, and the one that might even be mildly risky for you in front of a room of 2,000 people.
When there is something that I don't want to give away in case somebody watches this that wants that wants to hire me. Kind of the surprise.
I was just sitting here thinking about the $100 trick a second ago. Thinking, man, he just showed that trick. Everybody's going to pick
That's all right because with that one and I switch up, and sometimes even one of the things that I like to do with this is instead of making them make two decisions between mine and the question mark, because which there's some good little fun banter that I've kind of put together around that, but. Sometimes even doing this around products or, highlighting. I had a company one time, they literally just wanted me to take their top 3 products. And so I used that as a way to guide people's decisions.
I like that.
Yeah. It was, and it was, really straightforward and simple, just figuring out how to then utilize that in a way to get them where I wanted them to be. But,
that's pretty cool. So it doesn't matter what you write on that envelope. You can just guide them to.
Hopefully, it is a little bit more challenging. I've lost 100 once, but that is pretty good odds. So I'll go with it. But as far as like one of the things, and I don't know if Brian remembers it, but there is something I like to bookend a lot of times if they're hiring me for the first time, I do something at the beginning that's kind of a throwaway joke. It seems kind of nonsensical. It gets people participating and lets down, that guard that I've kind of talked about already. Some people are kind of hesitant. And then at the end, it comes back that not only is it important, but it's like a major showing that I was able to guide people all the way along to some, that I wanted them to do. So I would just say in general, anytime that I put something out there, like I have predicted that you're going to do this, or I'm committing those are the most challenging. Again, I have a pretty high batting average, but I have had things just completely fall apart. Like, for example, I don't know, did you notice this back here, Brian?
I do, yeah.
It says your name on it. So again, so this morning when I was drinking coffee, I went through and I just I glanced through some emails that we had, kind of went through and rewatched some clips of you two and just trying to kind of gauge how I thought you would decide in a certain, some different scenarios. So let's see if I'm correct on this, Brian. Okay.
Sure.
Because again, can't change this now. All right. So it's actually a series. Let me make sure this is not going to fall. There we go. All right. I think we
can use that for my Clint Black songs next week.
That's right. That's right.
Scott Adams on the highway. Sirius XM.
Right.
Hope you enjoy.
So we'll do this. So here are a series of different decisions, and I'm hoping that I have you pegged on this, Brian. So first thing, have you ever played the game Would You Rather?
I have, yeah.
Okay. So this is a simple one. If you were only able to use forks or spoons for the rest of your life, which would you go with? You can only use forks. You can only use spoons. You cannot use both.
Yeah, I'd say a spoon.
Spoon.
Yeah.
So
makes me think of that Steve Martin movie where he's poking himself in the eye with a fork.
Spoon. Right. He's one for one.
So see, I thought you would go with a spoon. You seem like a
nice.
Spoon guy. All right. So let's try the next one here. I'm hoping all these don't fall on the floor. Next question. For the rest of your life, you could only use one-ply toilet paper or be itchy, continuously itchy. I know. I mean, that's the thing. Neither one is a good option.
Hey, I think with one-ply toilet paper, you might be continuously itchy.
Or be itchy.
That's right. Or be itchy. You're always slightly itchy, or you can only use one-ply toilet paper for the rest of your life.
Well, if I'm going to be honest with you, I'd go with the one-ply.
You're a one-ply kind of guy?
Okay. Yeah.
Go again. One-ply. One-ply. I pegged you as a one-ply kind of guy.
I got you. Listen, I wanted to mess with you, but I'm itchy anyways, even with the two-ply. So
then, yeah, why mess with it? All right, two more things here. Now,
I'll be right with you.
All right, two more. If you had the ability to either be invisible or fly, so you have like a superpower, which would you go with, invisibility or flight?
Ooh. Fly. Yeah, I'm a flyer.
You're a flyer?
Yeah, I want to be seen.
Man, 3 for 3.
Look at that.
That's pretty strong.
But now here's the thing, and I want you to be honest with me on this. This morning, is this the first outfit that you picked out? Or did you change your mind?
First one.
Very first one.
That's the very first one.
I didn't get it all, but I knew you were going to wear a white golf shirt.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I'm not going to ask how you did it, right? But holy crap, that is cool. A white golf shirt. Now, if Scotty did this, there's no way you would have picked a Clint Black country style shirt, would you?
I don't know. I've had less conversations with Scott, so I don't know.
Nothing country about this shirt.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Listen, and part of me wants to say, how did you do it? Just so I can tie it back to like, what are some very real world learning lessons that salespeople can use? But I want to steer it to my senses, and I could be wrong here.
Okay.
Is that you've had to become really good at reading body language? Is it tone of voice? When you're doing this, some of it is prepared and doesn't matter what their tone of voice is and their face is and their body language is, I imagine. But I imagine some of it is.
Like, I don't want to say that every single thing that I do is body language, because it's not. I have a whole toolkit, and at the end of it, I'm going to try my best to make it work. It doesn't always work out. I've tried to figure out ways to either get people to give me the information that I need without feeling like they've given it to me. And sometimes that is body language. Sometimes I can peg specific things, and I could even tell someone else, like, I saw this happened. Sometimes, because I've been doing this long enough, I just kind of get a thought, and sometimes I just go with it. And if it's wrong, I try to figure out a way to bring it back in an entertaining, fun way. Particularly some of my biggest, like, there's no way he can figure this out. Sometimes I just go for it and hope that it works. But yeah. And sometimes I try to guide people subtly, as we've kind of already talked about, to make decisions I want them to make. And then either I show that, that I knew this or pre-planned it ahead of time, or then I pretend I'm trying to figure out what they're thinking. Because if they're thinking what I want them to think, it's kind of easy.
What are some tips you could give sales reps on how to help people like subtly, go in the direction you want them to go in the decision-making deal? I mean, you obviously are brilliant at it, the way you do it.
Well,
you don't even notice you're doing it, other than we know what you do for a living. But if a salesperson's doing it, people aren't going to probably pick up on it or be on alert.
Yes. Well, and to a degree, while there's absolutely a whole lot that crosses over, when I'm in a situation like, whether it's presenting for a company and there's more messaging, or if it's just entertainment, I know that there are some people that I'm going to have a much more difficult time with. And so I can choose to avoid them or not based on, initially, as soon as I step out and I start my opening spiel, I'm immediately scanning, trying to see who wants to be part of the experience. Right. But even with that, some people who are being overzealous and excited can throw things off as well. Yeah. Not intentionally, but they can. Sometimes when it comes to getting back to your answer or your question, while there are a whole lot of things that people can learn about body language, and there's a lot of, just honestly, a lot of crap that's out there that, people need to avoid, but there are some very reputable sources, like Joe Navarro. I don't know if you're familiar with who, but he was actually like an FBI investigator and has written several books. I think he's the top speaker in the world when it comes to body language. But so much of it is really just about trusting. Like, we are naturally very empathetic creatures, and just paying attention to people gives you so much information. And it seems like it's really a lot more simple than people make it. As I mentioned earlier when we were talking, so people are so distracted. And when it comes to conversations and interacting with people, it is, so many people are just waiting for their turn to say their next thing, automatically, I'll be honest, my first experience with sales, I sold windows door to door, and I was awful at it. One, it's really odd to knock on somebody's door and then tell them, like, you have really crappy windows. Can I replace these for you? But I remember being in that mindset. I had the script, and I had to, I was just waiting for them to say what they were going to say, so then I could jump in and say what I was supposed to say. And, and if they say this, I go down this branch. If they say, instead of just stopping and looking at the person and conversing with them and actually hearing what they're saying, and that's one of the things that I think even outside of sales, people can hopefully gain from working with me, is just understanding that just stopping and looking and listening and actually paying attention and using your natural skills that we all have. There's so much that you can take in that help you to better understand the person, help you understand what it is that they are uncomfortable about, what it is that excites them. It's just like we've all been in a conversation, sitting there in a situation, and as soon as somebody says something, the whole energy of the group or the room just goes down, and we know, like, someone is mad, someone is uncomfortable. Like, we know what that is. It's not some supernatural weird thing. I mean, like, there's a feeling to that. Like, someone has rubbed someone the wrong way. And just utilizing that and just looking for those places where, first of all, as I say, just go back, just listen to people. So many people are trying to get them to buy this thing, to do this, that they're not even taking the time to listen if that person's even really interested in this at all. And then how are you going to guide them if the whole way, kind of, Brian, as you were saying earlier, how people, well, in the demonstration you were talking about, Scott, how, when you just start trying to tell people what decision they should make, our natural inclination is just to dig our heels in and like, no, you're not going to tell me. But when you listen and then you are prescribing to them from a professional, educated standpoint, this is going to provide that for you. Well, now you're solving their problem versus telling them what they should do. I hope that makes sense.
Well, what you're describing in the, I guess, the psychology and communication world is emotional intelligence, which is, to me, is a fancy word for getting outside of yourself and having an awareness of other people, right? So if we think what makes below average salespeople below average, it's everything's inward. It's me, it's my product, it's my message.
Yep.
And I think the folks who really want to influence behavior for the right reasons, because there is a genuine selflessness for the other person, you're picking up on their body language, their tone, when their eyes are twitching. So body language doesn't have to be this cheesy thing.
Right. Really
what it is just stop worrying about you right now and look. Another thing is, and as it applies to what's a daily habit. Well, for you hospital salespeople who might be listening right now, and you walk into a big facility and you've got an appointment in the cardiology department, and you bust and you go right to this cardiology department. That door opens and you see the lady sitting there at the desk, and you head back into the hallway, and you can't wait to get to that exam room to have your meeting. But all of these clues were around you. You were aware of your environment. You saw someone over there who you had never met before, and you turned over and you smiled at them, right? That's how the brain, I think, should work. At least that's what I'm getting out of you. Awareness was the word that I wrote down.
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's, there's so much that is just right there, and it's free and available. And again, at the end of the day, it's not about, if you have a quality product that is going to provide what this person needs, there's nothing sleazy about it. There's nothing like that after listening to them, that this is going to solve their problem, that this is the best solution for them. So then it really is just having a conversation, and you are just someone that is in a unique position to provide exactly what they need. And then once they realize that on their own, then it's not, trying to, get them to sign on the dotted line or whatever. They understand, like, this is what we're looking for. And then they are eager to buy.
I got to imagine that you deal with skepticism always in your shows. I mean, people just come into it with that. We build these 2-minute videos to train reps on how to sell a product specifically. One of the slides is, here are the top 3 objections you're going to get, or skepticism you're going to get, how to overcome those. What are some ways that you do that when you see, because you're walking into a room where there's going to be skeptics? What are some techniques that you use to kind of overcome some of that stuff?
A big part of it is, one, and this kind of goes back to what we talked about with sales already, that once they realize that I am there for them and that my goal
that's a great one.
Then it just changes the dynamic completely. Yeah, because 100%. I mean, it's the same thing, I've stepped into, as I'm sure everybody has, whether it's buying a car or whatever else, and you just get this feeling when like, they are not listening to anything that I'm saying. They have a goal in mind. And so in my show, to get back to what you're asking, the most important thing for me to get people on my side, and again, I'm still looking out for those people that no matter what I do, they're sitting their arms crossed and look like, if I ask them to do something, they want to punch me in the face, and I'm going to avoid that person. But at the same time, if I'm able to let them know, like, he is here for our benefit and our enjoyment, it changes all of a sudden. Now they're, okay, what's he going to do next? Because it's not about me up there showing, hopefully the things that I show them, they find, amazing and cool, but that's not the goal, because even before I'm able to tell somebody what they're thinking or, guide them in this direction, there's hopefully everybody that I bring up feels like I genuinely care about them. I talk to them, ask them where they're from, what is their role in this company, and then they get their chance to kind of show and as hokey as it sounds, be the star of the show.
Right.
Then I turn it back to, but still the whole thing is just focusing on them, client focus.
Hey, would you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
Naturally introvert.
Okay.
Quite a bit.
And so it had to be difficult for you as an introvert to early on get up in front of an adult audience.
Mm-hmm.
That had to be nerve-wracking, right?
Absolutely.
How did you become confident?
Part of that is prepare, over prepare, so that I do not hesitate in the least. When I walk up in front of a group, I feel confident that no matter what direction things take, I can bring it back because I've prepped that much and I anticipate in my mind the things that could go wrong, how they're going to go wrong. And then I come up with a solution to that. So I'm not trying to come up with it in the moment, and then focusing on the interaction over everything else. Because even in like a show or when I'm doing something with messaging, right up to the moment, I'm usually just like, going through my notes and reviewing. And then when I step up in front of people, I try to forget every bit of it. And what I mean by that is I know it's in my subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's back there. I have read through these lines. I know what I want to say in regards to this. And now I just talk to the people. And I know that that'll pop out and it'll come out and when I need it to. But the more like early on and whenever I would stand in front of people, because I knew like I wanted to say this line and I wanted to do this, which again, it's just like sales scripts or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so focused on making sure that I remembered it, that more than often I would forget it. And then whenever I just focused on the interaction, it naturally came out when it needed to.
Yeah, I love that. And that's what I was trying to get from you. I just led the hell out of you, Josh Fletcher.
I knew where you were taking me, Brian.
Hey,
no,
he already knew,
I wrote that.
He already knew what you were going to say before you said it.
No,
that's right. I was already.
Because it's so true. So again, some of the best salespeople I've ever met are introverts, and it's not what we typically think of as a salesperson, right?
Absolutely.
And so right here on my pad, I have an introvert plus preparation equals a showman.
There you go.
Right. But if you were just an introvert and you mildly practiced a couple of those things and you were put in that heat environment of 2,000 people, that would be risky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was this practice, drilling and rehearsing of this skill and this art that you have. And you can command an audience of thousands of people as an introvert. And I think that's really cool. And I think the lesson I'm trying to convey to salespeople, one is there's different types of personalities. You may be that more quiet person. But I think if you find what that process may be, it doesn't even matter what it is. Listen, you should be role playing. I'm walking into a hospital and I'm going to be meeting with a big doctor, just as you plan at home what to do with those envelopes.
Yeah.
Because in front of the audience, you can't lack confidence, or they're going to, right? They'll see that little open door. Absolutely. And you're cooked. They're never going to invite you back. Yep. Same thing as you walking into that surgery center, right? If they say something and you have no clue because you never thought of this before, your confidence is gone. You are cooked and you ain't going to win the sale, right? That's why I love it. It's showtime. It's theater. And that's where our job should be. Theater.
Yeah, I would throw out, I know preparedness is huge, and I agree with you and Sully both on that, but you have to get in situations on stage where you're just under some serious pressure or scrutiny. Is there anything you do personally? There are techniques that you use to stay calm, because obviously sales reps have difficult conversations. The management folks that listen to this podcast, I had to have one recently that was very stressful for me. And it's like, how do you stay calm in that situation versus letting emotion kind of take over?
I think a simple thing is not forgetting just to pause and breathe and think. I think particularly when people are put in a situation and they know things are not going ideal or as they had planned, the natural reaction is to start trying to fix it really quick. And instead, like, even if, let's say somebody, it may be an indication you should have prepared better. If somebody asks you a question or says something to you that you're unfamiliar with, but you're already in that situation, So stopping to think instead of stumbling over yourself, because now you've lost even more control because, it's clear you have no clue what you're talking about. But just pausing and even like going back, because this goes back to the body language thing. So many times there's so much that can happen by just stopping, listening, and just let yourself, think on it for a second before you respond. And then this kind of goes back to something that plays into this. And then, Brian, you asking about being on stage and being an introvert is the strength and impact in people meeting the genuine you. And if you don't know the answer to something, say you don't know the answer instead of sitting there coming up with some, BS answer that's clearly BS. Mm-hmm. Just being honest and say, that's not something I'm familiar, but making them feel comfortable that because it's not always about having all the right answers, but making them confident that one, you're going to own whatever it is. And then now how are you going to remedy this? And letting them know that, because going back again to the genuine self, like one of the biggest things that was a light bulb moment for me and completely changed all of my performances was the moment that I fully owned who I was along with all my little quirks. And like, even going back to, as you said, I went on stage and it's clear right from the get-go that this accent is, people start trying to peg where I'm from. And I did a show.
It ain't Jersey.
Absolutely not. And so there was a period in time because as I started doing shows and, my circle of performance, kind of widened out and I was interacting with people from all over the country and beyond. There was a period there where I felt the need to, I was like, I'm going to try to minimize and focus on not completely get rid of my accent, but, kind of rein it in a little bit. And all that changed for me. I had a show. It was a small company Christmas event early on. And there was a thing and I was interacting with a guy and his name was Jeff. Well, probably already I said it. This guy in the back of the room called me out in front of everybody and he said, his name is Jeff, not JF. And so I'm in this room with a bunch of people. And so initially, I'm just thinking, oh, you jerk. But in the moment, I decided, I was like, I'm going to go the opposite direction. And so every time I said the guy's name, I did it even more. I was like, JF. And so, and I just,
kind of like a televangelist.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end, even the guy who was trying to heckle me, he came up and he's like, well done. He's like, you did well with that. And at the time, there was a mentor of mine who was helping me. And he's like, why would you do that? He's like, that is your brand. That is you. People want a real person, not. So he's like, get up there and talk how you talk. And so, and ever since then, because again, people can tell when we are trying to be something we're not, or to not, and they are going
not genuine.
Yes. And that person is going to trust you so much more, even if they see some of those little things that are,
makes you human.
Absolutely. Yes. It doesn't need to be perfect and polished. It just needs to be genuine and authentic. And
I like what you said about the pause, especially in today's environment. Most of what goes on in today, yes, we are face to face a lot, but a lot of it is email, text. Yeah. And I had a mentor when I first got into the industry, a guy named Billy Harris, who I love to death and taught me so many things. But one of the things that he taught me that I was horrible at when I was younger was, hey, just because you get an email from somebody, that does not mean you have to respond right that second, because you're responding with emotion. And Billy had the wonderful art of taking emotion out of sales. It was, there's no emotion in it. Yes, you can be passionate about your product, your company, all that. But if somebody tells you no, there's no reason to get emotional over it. Or if somebody has an issue with something, and just taking that second to pause. And I think it's whether it's a management conversation with an employee or whether it's a sales conversation, with a rep, with the customer. I think that just breathe a second, take a minute. You don't have to respond. A lot of times what I found is a lot of this stuff takes care of itself if you just give it a little bit of time to settle. Because 9 times out of 10, the customer just wants to be heard. They want to get it off their plate. But if you respond, it's exactly what you said, Josh. You're trying to fix it. Mm-hmm. And that's true in our personal life too. If somebody's just getting something off their chest and you try to fix it, you're going to make it worse. You're throwing, gas on that fire.
Because you're probably solving the wrong problem.
Yeah, it's not the problem that they're coming to.
That's not the problem that they're having, right? And which again goes back to an awareness and this emotional intelligence is, they said something to you. So for you managers, it might be a sales rep who said, I'm having this issue. And the average manager starts answering that issue. Well, here's how you fix it, to your point. But that's not their problem. If you did a good job of peeling it back, asking some deeper questions, and then maybe you get to something totally different. I had a guy in my old radio program. His name was Dan Burris, and he had this, Scotty, he had this quarterly newsletter, and he would charge $250,000 for his quarterly newsletter. You want to talk about a publisher? This guy was unbelievable. Jeez. And I said, give me your big lesson. Like he gave me one golden nugget. And he said, I want everyone grab a pen and paper, but if you're driving, don't do this. Write this down. He said, your problem isn't your problem. It's another problem. He said, because if you knew that was your problem, you would have solved it a long time ago. If that was your real problem, you would have solved it. You can't, that's not the issue. Now, the other thing I want to talk about that you just said, Scotty, is taking emotion. Billy took emotion out of it. Right? Oh. So Billy Harris, correct me if I'm wrong, rarely seems stressed or frazzled.
Never. And you want to talk about a Southern accent. He's from South Carolina, and he plays that good old South Carolina.
But never frazzled.
But he never, nothing gets Billy sideways.
Exactly. So think about how many folks the three of us have known over the years, be it, someone at work, Scotty, for us, or for you, maybe it's a principal or some other teacher. And they're always like this, and they want people to think that they're stressed and frazzled because they think that perception is going to be, well, they must be very busy and important. Look how stressed they are.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the opposite. All you're doing is you're projecting stress on everyone else. And if that's the case, there's no way for you to positively influence them, right? So I love you say, breathe, be calm at all times. If your body's telling you to be frazzled, take a minute, right? Be it through an email or live. Yeah. It never works to influence others, right? And this is hard for me because I tend to ask my wife, I tend to be a little freak.
You don't have to ask her. I can tell you're a little freak.
All right, let's do this. It's this Scotty's favorite time.
I love rapid fire, baby. Here we go.
Sully. It's the rapid fire, Josh. We're going to throw a little some questions out your way. Make these things a little short. We're going to try to learn a little bit more about you. Scotty, would you please take it away?
Yeah. Okay. So what's the most outrageous thing that you've done in a performance? If you want to share it to the audience so that you don't give it away.
Me personally, what's the most outrageous?
Yeah, like what's the most was there? I'll give you another one. When you're on stage, have you ever I'm going to try this right now?
As I mentioned earlier, sometimes things just pop in my head and I spit them out. Don't know where they come from. And sometimes it clicks and sometimes it doesn't. One time I randomly just mentioned a name, have no idea why, popped up and I was working with someone. And I noticed this lady started visibly, it was actually during a cocktail hour at a fundraising event. And so she visibly started getting stressed. And when her husband walked away, she pulled me to the side and asked, she said, how did you know about him? And again, I have no idea what I know. But anyways, as her husband walked away, I found out that this was her side lover. And so, so that was an awkward situation. And she was just trying to get me to stop talking and not saying,
how red was her head?
Yeah. And so
I bet her head was so red it looked like Sully after a bender.
God.
Yeah. It was a very odd situation.
Hey, we don't normally do this during rapid fire, but I have to ask this one question. Do you think you've become better at really reading minds or touching into something outside of the human element?
I think that we are all constantly filtering everything that we see through all of our past experiences, even when you meet somebody, your brain is going through and comparing them to other people that you've interacted with.
Well, what about the supernatural? I'm trying to get to, is there anything supernatural?
I do not think there's anything supernatural. I think every single thing that I do, anyone could do. Part of it is a set of skills that I developed and still working to develop further. And some of it is, it sounds supernatural, but I think we all have a genuine intuition. They talk about a gut feeling, and just learning to trust that. And I think, sometimes there's a whole lot to it. Again, scientifically, I don't know how it all matches up, but I believe, sometimes things just happen and you can't really explain why.
Got it. All right, I'll move on. So, go ahead, Scotty.
I was gonna say, what's a guilty pleasure you wouldn't want your fans to know about you?
A guilty pleasure
Besides one-ply paper.
I don't know. I don't have anything that I can think of.
Are you saying you're perfect, Josh Fletcher?
Basically, that's what I'm getting at.
Can you bring your wife? Can you bring your wife in the room?
Oh, yeah, she would unload. But,
how about favorite brand of bourbon? You're in Kentucky.
Oh, there you go. That's a good one.
Favorite brand of bourbon. I'm a pretty big fan of. I really like Flatboat.
Ooh. Did you win any money on the Derby?
I did not. There's a whole lot more involved with the Derby than figuring out what people are thinking. If I knew how to win the Derby consistently, I would be off in Bora Bora or something.
What's the biggest misconception that you get about being a mentalist? Like, what do people misconceive? Probably what Sully was just asking, is it supernatural?
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is, there's some people who genuinely think that I'm just going to look at them and like all their dirty, dark secrets just start flowing out, and it doesn't work that way. I guess that'd be just the biggest thing, is people trying to make sense of it. And so I have these people who will tell me, everything you're doing is body language, and you did this even when it has nothing to do with what I'm doing. And then somebody else, I've had people that even whenever I've told them like what I just did was, and I'll show them how I did it, and they'll be like, I know you're really just, trying to make people feel comfortable with your abilities. And, so I think everybody still, no matter what I say, they're going to conjure up in their own minds how it works, because that's, we all need to make sense of things.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So,
all right, a final question. If you could pull off any heist with your mentalist skills, what would you steal?
I could steal anything?
Yeah.
Mentalist heist.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
You're too nice. Go steal. We're going to make a movie out of this. The Mentalist Thief. This is a Netflix movie.
Yeah.
Documentary.
What is it? What are we stealing?
Could steal anything.
Anything you want.
That the thing is, like, I have a hard time going beyond anything besides the obvious, just like financial comfort and not needing to worry about things. But
the winner of next year's Derby race, because it's rigged.
Right. If we're going for something random, I would love to have the DeLorean from Back to the Future.
There you go.
If we're going all out.
That's random.
So
that thing I thought I would hear on this podcast, it wasn't the DeLorean from Back to the Future.
If we're going all out.
All right. Well, listen, Josh, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us. The tips are great. You're fun as can be. And we're happy to expose you to the healthcare medical environment. There's a lot of great companies who I think you can not only entertain, but
tell them how they can get a hold of you. How can they get a hold of you? What your website, some of that stuff? Because a lot of these companies are constantly looking for speakers at their national sales meetings, and they warned Sully out, so they need somebody new.
And they get you for free. They keep having you back.
I'm going to start charging. No, seriously though, Josh, how do they get a hold of you?
So the easiest way is just through my website, which is joshfletchermentalist.com.
Love it. Anything you got coming in the near future that you want to tell them about?
A whole lot of travel coming up and staying busy, but no, that's about it. Just trying to get more into this whole messaging thing, because I love that. That's one of the things I really nerd out on, is being able to take these ideas and mesh them with, this mentalist stuff that I do and put something together that people enjoy and has impact. So,
yeah.
Well, man, good conversation.
Doing my
close us out, Sully.
Loved it. So, hey, Scotty, listen, I'd love to keep chatting, but it is my member guest golf weekend. So I'm about to be in about, I'd say 2.5 hours, be a mentalist of my own. We call it
the best,
Cheetos and soda.
This is the best you're going to feel for the next 3 days, buddy.
All right, Josh, we love you. Scotty, I love you. Hey, hope you have a great rest of your Friday. You make sure you come on back next week for The Cure with Scotty and Sully. See you.
Make sure you subscribe. YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Subscribe to the channel so you get alerts when the podcast drops.
Good thinking.
Josh, thanks, brother.
See you guys.
Nice to meet you, Scott. Bye, Brian.
Good to meet you.